Today I am going to teach you human neural coordination. You have studied about different systems of human being. So, all these systems must be coordinated, and if coordination is lacking, then no system will function perfectly. So, there is a coordinating system in our body which is called neural system, human neural system, central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system, again it has brain and spinal cord. It is developed from a neuroectoderm. So, when we talk about brain, it acts as a living supercomputer and which coordinates and controls all the body functions. For example, if you want to eat something, first you have to hold that food material, and after holding we have to take that food material to your mouth. If you take that food material to your mouth, if mouth is not opened, and there will be no use. So, if you drop the food material, and it will become a mere waste. So, when we take the food material to your mouth must be opened. This is coordination. So, that kind of coordination we can see in our day-to-day life also. For example, in our college, so there is a administrative office, and in that total timetable and what is going on in college and all these things should be planned. So, that coordination must be there. So, here also in human body, that coordination is possible by this neural system, which includes the mainly brain. So, here brain is a processing unit. The brain is the site of information and processing and control, and this such kind of very important organ in our body and should be protected in a meaningful way. So, it is protected by three layers which are called cranial meninges, and they are named as dura mater, arachnoid, pia mater. So, dura mater is the outermost one, and it is like this. So, here dura mater is there. So, if you see this diagram, dura mater. So, here dura mater is there. This is dura mater. So, this is outermost layer, that is the strongest one, and after that, below that dura mater, arachnoid is there. So, it is a webby material. Below this arachnoid, there is another layer that is called pia mater. So, all these three membranes, they are protecting the brain, and these membranes are called meninges, and as they are protecting brain, they are called cranial meninges. So, cranial meninges are how many? Three. So, they are dura mater, arachnoid and pia mater. So, if you see here, so dura mater is the outermost one, the thick one, and double layered membrane, two layers are there, and it also lines the inner surface of the cranial cavity. So, if cranial cavity is there here like this, if this is cranial cavity, if this is cranial bone, and if you observe, this is dura mater, this is the inner border of cranial cavity, this is dura mater, and dura mater lines the inner surface of cranial cavity. This is cranium, and here cranial cavity, this is inner border of cranial cavity, and which is lined by this dura mater. This is dura mater, and if we observe, dura mater lines the inner border of the cranial cavity and also outer surface of the brain. So, outer surface of the brain and inner border of the cranial cavity. This is dura mater, and arachnoid is thin. Dura mater is thick, but arachnoid is thin, web-like, and it is a middle membrane covering the brain. So middle membrane means, if you see here, so this one, 2 layers of dura mater. Below these 2 layers, that means dura mater, arachnoid is there, this one, 𝗵𝗵. So after that 𝗑𝗏 mater will be there. So 𝗑𝗏 mater is the innermost layer of meninges. The third membrane, cranial membrane, is 𝗑𝗏 mater, and it is also thin and innermost meninx, and it adheres to the brain. That means the outer surface of the brain is immediately covered by 𝗑𝗏 mater. So these three are, number 1 dura mater, number 2 arachnoid mater, and number 3 𝗑𝗏 mater. These three are cranial meninges which protect brain. And apart from the cranium is a bony part, and these three are membranous part. So this kind of protection will be there for brain, which is an important part of central nervous system or central neural system. Next, coming to brain is divided into 3 parts: forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Forebrain, it includes again 3 parts: olfactory bulb, cerebrum, diencephalon. So brain is divided into 3 parts, namely forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Again forebrain is it consists of 3 parts: olfactory bulb, cerebrum, diencephalon. So if you take this olfactory bulb, olfaction means which perceives sense of smell. So here if you take this olfactory bulb, which is a part of forebrain, and it receives impulses pertaining to smell from olfactory epithelium. So that means it is useful for sense of smell, and the sense of smell is possible by this part of forebrain. Next, come to cerebrum. This is the major part of the brain. So it is major part of the brain and divided into 2 halves, cerebral hemispheres, by a longitudinal fissure. This cerebrum is actually divided into 2 parts. Like this. So these 2 are cerebral hemispheres. Cerebral hemispheres. And if you see here, this is a longitudinal fissure. So this is longitudinal fissure here. This longitudinal fissure divides this cerebrum into 2 halves, this one and this one, 2 halves. And hemispheres, they are not complete spheres, half spheres, hence the name hemispheres. Cerebral, it is related to cerebrum. So cerebrum is divided into 2 hemispheres which are called cerebral hemispheres. And next one, these hemispheres internally connected by a transverse wide and flat bundle of myelinated fibers beneath the cortex called corpus callosum, and corpus callosum is also called callosal commissure. So that means, for example, so if these 2 are cerebral hemispheres and this part is called corpus callosum, this part is called corpus callosum or callosal commissure. Corpus callosum, and corpus callosum is also called callosal commissure. So next, the surface of the brain is composed of grey matter. So grey matter is called cerebral cortex. Here this is cerebral cortex. So grey matter means the surface of this cerebrum is composed of grey matter, and surface of the cerebral cortex shows convolutions and folds and grooves. and convolutions and folds are like this. So, like this, the surface of the brain will appear like this. So, this is deeper groove here, this is this one, and here shallow elevations and depressions are also there. And the folds, elevations are called gyri, and the deeper grooves between the gyri are called fissures. Shallower grooves between the gyri are called sulci. So, shallow parts are called sulci and deeper ones are called fissures and elevations are called gyri. As cerebral cortex is composed of non-myelinated axons, and here cerebral medulla consists of mostly myelinated axons, and hence it appears in white color. So, hence it is white matter. Cortex is grey matter, medulla is white matter. And here each cerebral hemisphere is divided into 4 lobes: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe. So, each cerebral hemisphere as it has 4 lobes, total brain has 8 lobes. That means 2 frontal lobes, 2 parietal lobes, 2 temporal lobes, 2 occipital lobes. And this is about cerebral hemispheres. Next come to diencephalon. It is also called thalamencephalon. So, here diencephalon has 3 parts again: epithalamus, thalamus, hypothalamus. The upper part is epithalamus and the lower part is hypothalamus and the middle part is thalamus. That is, this is actually so the main part, and this is epithalamus, this is hypothalamus. And here, so this is diencephalon. Here if you see, and thalamus, hypothalamus and epithalamus, and all these are actually the parts of this part here. So, epithalamus is the roof of the diencephalon. Epithalamus is the roof of the diencephalon, and it is non-nervous part. So, this is epithalamus, this is roof, and this is actually floor. This roof is called epithalamus, floor hypothalamus. Epi means upper, hypo means lower. So, epithalamus and hypothalamus, and here this epithalamus is a non-nervous part and it has anterior choroid plexus and which is fused with pia mater. This epithalamus is fused with pia mater to form anterior choroid plexus, and as we know, this pia mater is the innermost layer of the meninges. So, next come to pineal stalk. So, this pineal stalk is present with this epithalamus. So, epithalamus, it consists of pineal stalk also. Just behind the anterior choroid plexus, epithelium of the epithalamus forms a pineal stalk. So, this is actually epithalamus, and it forms anterior choroid plexus along with pia mater, and behind that this is pineal stalk. Next, pineal stalk ends with a round structure called pineal body. This is pineal body here. And next come to thalamus. Thalamus, it is present above the midbrain. It lies superior to the midbrain. So, this thalamus is the major coordinating center for sensory and motor signaling. So, sensory actions and motor actions functions both are coordinated by thalamus, this thalamus. And next, hypothalamus, as we have discussed, and this is the lower part of the diencephalon, and this is also it acts as thermostat of the body. So, this hypothalamus lies at the base of the thalamus, and if this is total thalamus, this is hypothalamus, and hypothalamus, from this hypothalamus a funnel shaped extension is formed, that is called infundibulum. Here this is infundibulum, and with this it ends with pituitary gland. This is pituitary gland. The infundibulum connects the hypothalamus with the pituitary gland. So this is pituitary gland. And this hypothalamus is osmoregulatory, thermoregulatory, and thirst, feeding, and satiety center. So actually in forebrain. Osmoregulatory, water balance can be maintained by this hypothalamus. Thermoregulatory, temperature also maintained or so regulated by this hypothalamus. Thirst, feeding, and satisfaction, and all these are the centers and which are located with hypothalamus. This is about hypothalamus, and all these thalamus, hypothalamus, and epithalamus, and all these are present in this particular area in brain. Next come to midbrain. So the midbrain is located between thalamus and pons вороли. Pons вороли is the part of hindbrain, and this thalamus or hypothalamus are the part of the forebrain. That means between forebrain and midbrain, forebrain and hindbrain, so midbrain will be located. So here a pair of longitudinal bands of nervous tissue and of the ventral portion of midbrain present are called cerebral peduncles or crura cerebri. So that means these crura cerebri are nothing but bands of nervous tissue and ventrally located, and a pair, and two are there, longitudinal bands. So two longitudinal bands, ventral side of the midbrain, and they are called crura cerebri or cerebral peduncles. Crura cerebri connects cerebral hemispheres with pons. That means the crura cerebri, so actually they are connecting forebrain and hindbrain, part of forebrain and part of hindbrain. So if you read this particular sentence here, crura cerebri connect the cerebral hemispheres, the part of forebrain, and with pons. Pons means the part of hindbrain, both are connected by crura cerebri. That means the part of middle brain connecting forebrain and hindbrain is crura cerebri. So in the competitive exams, actually here, so this kind of questions may be asked, and the part of midbrain which is connected forebrain and hindbrain is, and the answer will be crura cerebri or otherwise cerebral peduncle. So how many are there? Two are there, a pair, and are they transverse bands or longitudinal bands? They are longitudinal bands, and ventral side or dorsal side, and ventral side. So all these points must be remembered, and the NEET aspirant actually. And apart from this particular crura cerebri, in middle brain, the main parts are four optic lobes, which are collectively called 𝗕𝗏𝗺 𝗂𝗧. So there are four lobes, optic lobes are there. They are collectively called 𝗕𝗏𝗺 𝗂𝗧. So these optic lobes lie in the dorsal portion of midbrain, and the midbrain, ventral side of the midbrain, crura cerebri here, the dorsal side of the midbrain, optic lobes, four optic lobes which are collectively called 𝗕𝗏𝗺 𝗂𝗧. So next, here in this particular four optic lobes, two are larger and two are smaller. The larger optic lobes are called superior colliculi, and they are useful for visual function, sight, and a smaller called inferior colliculi. They are auditory in function. Auditory means sense of hearing. So in this particular 𝗕𝗏𝗺 𝗂𝗧, four lobes are there, two are larger and two are smaller. Larger are for visual function and smaller are for auditory function. And these particular larger superior colliculi, they are located on anterior side, and inferior colliculi posterior side. So, this forms actually totally midbrain. When we review the midbrain here, so here ventral side crura cerebri which connects forebrain and hindbrain, and cerebral hemispheres with pons, and 4 optic lobes, they are corpora quadrigemina. Anterior larger lobes are there, posterior smaller lobes are there. So, anterior larger lobes are called superior colliculi and posterior smaller lobes are called inferior colliculi, and superior colliculi for visual function and inferior colliculi for auditory function. So, this is about midbrain. And next come to hindbrain. So, hindbrain, it also consists of 3 parts. So, they are cerebellum, pons varolii, medulla oblongata. Here this is pons, this is cerebellum, this is medulla oblongata. These three collectively form hindbrain. Cerebellum is also called little brain. This is second largest part of the brain. The first largest part is cerebrum and the second largest part is cerebellum. So, you should not be confused with these 2 terms, cerebrum, cerebellum. Cerebrum is the largest part in the brain, whereas cerebellum is second largest part of the brain. So, here this second largest part, which is cerebellum, it also consists of cerebellar hemispheres and a central vermis, cerebellar hemispheres and cerebral hemispheres, and here also confusion may be there, and cerebral hemispheres are different from cerebellar hemispheres, and cerebrum is largest part, cerebellum is second largest part. Second largest part has cerebellar hemispheres and vermis, and the largest part has cerebral hemispheres. So, next this second largest part has 3 lobes, anterior lobe, posterior lobe, floccular lobe. So, here it has 3 lobes, anterior lobe, posterior lobe, floccular lobe. Here in the case of this cerebellum, there is a branching tree-like core of cerebellar white matter which is called 𝗪𝗏𝗏. The 𝗪𝗏𝗏 means tree of life. So, it appears like this. Here if you see this cerebellum and here the tree-like appearance, this part is cerebellum. So, this white branching part is 𝗪𝗏𝗏 and this is grey part, the grey matter, and this is white matter. So, this is branching. So, this branching part is called 𝗪𝗏𝗏, tree of life. So, 𝗪𝗏𝗏, around 𝗪𝗏𝗏 grey matter is there which is called cerebral cortex. Cortex is always grey matter, we know that. Next come to cerebellum, the functions of cerebellum, and it controls and coordinates locomotor movements. It finally acts as gyroscope of the body. So, and it facilitates or it controls equilibrium, it maintains equilibrium of the body, balance of the body, balancing of the body. So, actually if cerebellum is damaged, balance of the body will be lost, and this is the main function of this particular cerebellum. So, if you see here, the cerebellum often results ataxia. Ataxia means uncoordinated voluntary muscle movements. So, voluntary movements means if we wish to function a particular function and a particular activity, and we can do that, and that kind of functions are called voluntary functions or voluntary movements. So, if I want to stretch my hand like this, I can do. So, this kind of movements are called voluntary movements. That kind of movements will be lost as cerebellum is damaged, and that condition is called ataxia. Ataxia means uncoordinated voluntary muscle movement or muscular movements. Next part of the hindbrain, and that is pons varolii. So, if you see the location of pons varolii, and it lies in front of the cerebellum, below the hindbrain and above the medulla oblongata. So what is the exact location of pons 𝗧𝗧? And here, so below the midbrain, above the medulla oblongata. If you see the diagram, and you can find the same here in this particular diagram. Here this is pons and midbrain is there here, and this is actually pons 𝗧𝗧, and this part is called pons 𝗧𝗧. And this pons 𝗧𝗧 has a nerve fibers which connects two cerebellar hemispheres, and one must concentrate on this particular word, cerebellar hemisphere. And pons 𝗧𝗧, it is nothing but nerve fibers which connect two cerebellar hemispheres and not cerebral hemispheres. So cerebral hemispheres are connected by corpus callosum. Here cerebellar hemispheres are connected by pons 𝗧𝗧, and there is a much difference between these two. So corpus callosum is a bridge or connection between two cerebral hemispheres, whereas here the pons 𝗧𝗧 is a bridge between two cerebellar hemispheres, and one is the bridge between largest part of the brain, another one is the bridge between second largest part of the brain. So this point must be carefully judged and carefully remembered. And now what is the function of this pons 𝗧𝗧? And it is a relay station between cerebellum and spinal cord, and the communication between spinal cord and cerebellum is maintained by this particular pons 𝗧𝗧. So this is the main function of pons 𝗧𝗧. And one more important function is there with this particular pons 𝗧𝗧, and that is, and it acts as a pneumotaxic center, and it has pneumotaxic center. And a pneumotaxic center means actually which maintains breathing, and the breathing mechanism is maintained by this particular pons 𝗧𝗧. A center is there particularly in this particular pons 𝗧𝗧. Here the pneumotaxic center is involved in controlling respiratory muscles, and which regulates the amount of air a person can take in. So when we breathe, so the amount of air, actually how much air should enter the lungs, and this activity must be controlled and coordinated by this pneumotaxic center, which is located in pons. For example, a person is running and more air should enter the lungs, and during that, so that kind of actually control. When that person stops running, then so more air, more oxygen not needed, then the function of lungs or breathing rate or ventilation must be lowered. So that kind of balancing, that kind of equilibrium is maintained by this pneumotaxic center, and this is located in pons 𝗧𝗧. So if we analyze, if pons 𝗧𝗧 is damaged or if it is not functioning, so that results in breathing problem. So this is about the pons 𝗧𝗧. And next come to medulla oblongata. So medulla oblongata, if you see, it extends from the pons 𝗧𝗧 and continues with the spinal cord. So the hindermost part of hindbrain is medulla oblongata. So medulla oblongata is actually a continuation of pons. It extends from pons and it continues as spinal cord. Here if you see, this is medulla oblongata, this is spinal cord. So this is pons, and from pons it extends from pons 𝗧𝗧. This is pons 𝗧𝗧, and this is medulla oblongata. This is actually the extension from pons, and it continues as spinal cord. So as you read that sentence, and this diagram actually it reveals that particular condition of. Now come to ventricles of the brain, that means cavities of the brain. So here the first ventricle and second ventricle both are called paracel, and right cerebral hemisphere first ventricle, left cerebral hemisphere second ventricle. So both are actually called paracels. Two paracels are there. So one is in right cerebral hemisphere, another one is in left cerebral hemisphere. So, next third one, this is first one, this is second one, and third one is in diencephalon, which is called diaceal. The fourth one is called myelocele, which is present in medulla oblongata. So, by observing this particular table, and we can understand here, there is no ventricle or no cavity in midbrain. So, midbrain is without cavity, devoid of cavity, devoid of ventricle. So, if you see forebrain, and in forebrain 2 ventricles are there, in midbrain, in forebrain 3 ventricles are there, in midbrain no ventricle is there, in hindbrain 1 ventricle is there. Maximum number of ventricles are located or present in forebrain. And how can we say that? So, in forebrain, cerebral hemispheres has 2 ventricles, diencephalon has 1 ventricle. Cerebral hemispheres and diencephalon both are the parts of forebrain. So, if you remember, in forebrain 3 parts are there: olfactory lobes, cerebral hemispheres, diencephalon. And olfactory lobes actually they are useful for sense of smell. And the cerebral hemisphere has 2 ventricles, right cerebral hemisphere first ventricle, left cerebral hemisphere second ventricle, and diencephalon has third ventricle, which is called diaceal. And corpora quadrigemina is devoid of ventricles. Corpora quadrigemina is devoid of ventricle. That means the midbrain has no ventricle. Corpora quadrigemina means midbrain. So, next, if you see plexus, here this medulla oblongata has posterior choroid plexus, and if you remember the anterior choroid plexus, it is with forebrain. In forebrain, especially in diencephalon, the epithalamus, in epithalamus along with pia mater, it forms anterior choroid plexus, that is anterior choroid plexus. And here in medulla, the part of hindbrain, it has posterior choroid plexus. So, in total brain 2 choroid plexus and we have studied up to now, they are anterior choroid plexus, which is with forebrain with epithalamus, and posterior choroid plexus with medulla oblongata. Next, functions, come to functions of medulla here, which includes cardiovascular and respiratory center, which has cardiovascular and respiratory centers. Cardiovascular means actually which control heart functioning, and respiratory functions also. The centers for swallowing, vomiting, coughing, sneezing, hiccuping. So, all they are actually located in this particular part, that is medulla oblongata. So, vomiting is also with this particular medulla, and that means involuntary functions. Voluntary functions are controlled by cerebellum, and cerebellum actually voluntary muscular movements, and here involuntary here. Next, medulla oblongata joins the spinal cord after emerging out of the cranium through the foramen of magnum. So, the cranium has an opening which is called foramen of magnum. This medulla comes out of this foramen magnum and continues as spinal cord. And finally, here brain stem, the final actually the total. So, brain stem includes midbrain, pons and medulla, and all together they are called brain stem. Next, brain stem. Brain stem includes medulla, pons and midbrain. So, these 3 collectively form brain stem. So, the functions of brain stem, if you see here, responsible functions of breathing, heartbeat and blood pressure. That means, and the functions of midbrain and the functions of pons and functions of medulla. Collectively, they are actually the functions of brain stem. This is about brain stem. The total overview of brain, if you want to see, and let us move to here. This is the brain. Here the total gyri and sulci are there, the surface, and now the cerebral hemispheres are connected by this corpus callosum, and the diencephalon, this is thalamus, this is hypothalamus, and above that epithalamus will be there. Next, this is temporal lobe, this is frontal lobe, and here occipital lobe. Next, parietal lobe. So, the 4 lobes of the brain: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and temporal lobe. Next, this is midbrain, corpora quadrigemina, and hindbrain, this is cerebellum, pons, medulla. This is 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗬𝗏. So, this is total overview of the brain, and pons, from this particular pons extension, this is medulla oblongata, it extends from pons continuous as spinal cord. So, this is total overview of the brain. In central nervous system, you have completed and brain. Now, we start spinal cord, and spinal cord, it is a continuation of medulla oblongata, and it also has protected by 3 meninges. They are called spinal meninges. So, they are namely dura mater and arachnoid and pia mater. So, outermost one is dura mater, middle one is arachnoid, and innermost one is pia mater. So, they are called spinal meninges: dura mater, arachnoid, and pia mater. This spinal cord extends as medulla oblongata and at the superior border of the second lumbar vertebrae in adults, and it has 2 enlargements: cervical enlargement and lumbar enlargement. Cervical enlargement means, and at neck region, neck region one enlargement is there, and at lumbar region one enlargement is there. So, the 2 enlargements are there with this particular spinal cord, and this is the cross section of spinal cord, and here the 4 horns, this one and this one and this one, and this is central canal, and this is anterior column and this is posterior column, and here cell body, and which is actually sensory here, and this here motor neuron is there. Both are joined together to form a mixed neuron, and this is about the cross section of total spinal cord. Spinal cord is present in neural canal, it has central canal. So, central canal is a canal present in spinal cord, whereas spinal cord is present in neural canal. Neural canal is a canal of vertebral column here. So, and generally students are confused with this particular 2 canals, and here neural canal is a part of a canal of vertebral column, and in which spinal cord is present. Spinal cord has central canal, this is the central canal here. So, and we must be careful about this particular 2 canals, neural canal and central canal. In NEET examination, these following type of questions may be asked. So, the first one, if you see, the number of ventricles in forebrain is. So, here options are, the first option is 2, the second one is 3, the third one is 1, the fourth one is 4. So, here in question what is asked, in forebrain the number of ventricles. So, if you count the number of ventricles in forebrain, in right cerebrum 1, cerebral hemisphere, in right cerebral hemisphere 1, in left cerebral hemisphere 1, and in diencephalon, which is called diacyl, and here, so 3 ventricles are there in forebrain. So, the correct option will be the second one. So, in the total number of ventricles in forebrain, so 3, and here come to the second question. The part of brain that maintains equilibrium of the body is. So, the balancing of the body is maintained by cerebellum. Here options are given. So, the first option is cerebrum, the second one is hypothalamus, the third one is epithalamus, and the fourth one is cerebellum. Cerebellum is the second largest part of the brain. The first largest part of the brain is cerebrum, and the second largest part of the brain is cerebellum, which controls and which maintains the equilibrium of the body, voluntary functions also. So actually the fourth option is the correct one in the case of the second question. Next, the third one. The fourth ventricle of the brain is present in. So there are 4 ventricles or 4 cavities of the brain, and the first 3 are located in, they are present in forebrain, and the midbrain has no ventricle. The third one, that is the hind brain, has the 4th ventricle, and the correct option will be medulla. So the medulla oblongata has the 4th ventricle. Next, fourth question. The bands of nerve fibers that connect forebrain and hindbrain and 2 cerebral hemispheres, 2 cerebellar hemispheres respectively. So in this question, and we have to follow the order given here. So the band of nerve fibers that connect forebrain and hindbrain, and next the 2 cerebral hemispheres, and next 2 cerebellar hemispheres. So first one, brain and hindbrain, the nerve fibers which connect brain and hindbrain, crura cerebri. Next, the 2 cerebral hemispheres are connected by corpus callosum. The 2 cerebellar hemispheres are connected by pons. So here if you see the same order, so crura cerebri, corpus callosum and pons. The first one, first option is the correct one. ఇక్కడ ఫస్ట్ క్వశ్చన్ మనం చూస్తే బ్రెయిన్లో ఎన్ని వెంట్రికిల్స్ ఉన్నాయని అడిగారు ఇక్కడ ఫోర్బ్రెయిన్. సో టోటల్ బ్రెయిన్లో ఎన్ని అంటే 4 వస్తుంది ఆన్సర్. అలా కాకుండా ఫోర్బ్రెయిన్లో అని మాత్రమే అడిగినప్పుడు ఆన్సర్ 3 వస్తుంది, అంటే సెకండ్ ఆప్షన్. అయితే ఇక్కడ జనరల్గా చేసే పొరపాటు ఏంటంటే స్టూడెంట్ ఈ ఆన్సర్ని యాక్చువల్గా 3 అనుకుంటారు. ఏది, ద నెంబర్ ఆఫ్ వెంట్రికిల్స్ ఇన్ ఫోర్బ్రెయిన్ అనగానే 3 అనేటువంటిది మైండ్లో వస్తుంది. కానీ 3 అనే ఆన్సర్ సెకండ్ ఆప్షన్లో ఉంది. 3 అనే ఆన్సర్ సెకండ్ ఆప్షన్లో ఉంది. సెకండ్ ఆప్షన్ని చూస్ చేసుకోవాలి. కానీ మైండ్లో 3 ఉంటుంది కాబట్టి 3 ఆప్షన్స్ చూస్ చేసుకుంటారు. ఆన్సర్ తెలిసి కూడా ఇలా మిస్టేక్స్ చేస్తారు. దానివల్ల లాస్ అవుతుంది. అంటే నీట్లో మనకు 1 మిస్టేక్ చేస్తే 5 మార్క్స్ పోయినట్టు లెక్క. సో కాబట్టి చాలా కేర్ఫుల్గా, క్వశ్చన్ చూస్తే చాలా సింపుల్గా అనిపిస్తుంది. సో అక్కడ చాలా కేర్ఫుల్గా ఆన్సర్ చేయాల్సిన రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీ స్టూడెంట్ మీద చాలా ఉంటుందన్నమాట. అలాగే సెకండ్ క్వశ్చన్ మనం చూస్తే, ద పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ బ్రెయిన్ దట్ మెయింటైన్స్ ఈక్విలిబ్రియం ఆఫ్ ది బాడీ. ఇది డైరెక్ట్ క్వశ్చన్. సో యాక్చువల్గా ఈజీగానే ఆన్సర్ చేయొచ్చు. బట్ ఇక్కడ ఉండే ప్రాబ్లం ఏంటంటే, ఇంతకుముందు నేను ఎక్స్ప్లెనేషన్లో చెప్పినట్టు సెరిబ్రమ్, సెరిబెల్లం ఈ రెండింటి మధ్య కన్ఫ్యూజన్ రావడానికి ఎక్కువ అవకాశం ఉంది. సెరిబ్రమ్ ద లార్జెస్ట్ పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ ది బ్రెయిన్, సెరిబెల్లం సెకండ్ లార్జెస్ట్ పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ ది బ్రెయిన్. ఈ రెండింటి మధ్య కన్ఫ్యూజన్ వచ్చినప్పుడు సెరిబ్రమ్ని చూస్ చేసుకోవడం అనేది రాంగ్ ఆప్షన్, రాంగ్ ఆన్సర్ అవుతుంది. సెరిబెల్లం అనేది కరెక్ట్ ఆన్సర్ అవుతుంది. అలాగే 4th వెంట్రికల్ ఆఫ్ ది బ్రెయిన్ ఈజ్ ప్రజెంట్ ఇన్. సో ఇది డైరెక్ట్ క్వశ్చనే, దీన్ని ఈజీగానే గుర్తించవచ్చు. ఫస్ట్ ఆప్షన్ మెడుల్లా. ఇక ఈ 4th క్వశ్చన్ కొద్దిగా కాంప్లికేటెడ్ వన్. ఎందుకంటే ఇక్కడ ఫస్ట్ ఆప్షన్ కరెక్ట్ ఆప్షన్ అవుతుంది, కానీ ఇందులో ఉన్నవన్నీ మిగతా ఆప్షన్స్లో కూడా ఉంటాయి. బట్ అది వరుసలో మనం గుర్తించగలగాలి. ఏ వరుసలో, ఏ క్రమంలో గుర్తించగలగాలి అంటే ఇక్కడ ఇచ్చిన క్రమంలో గుర్తించగలగాలి. సో ద బ్యాండ్స్ ఆఫ్ నర్వ్ ఫైబర్స్ దట్ కనెక్ట్ ఫోర్బ్రెయిన్ అండ్ హైండ్ బ్రెయిన్ అన్నాం. ఫోర్బ్రెయిన్ని హైండ్ బ్రెయిన్ని కలిపే బ్యాండ్ ఆఫ్ నర్వ్ ఫైబర్స్ ఏమై ఉంటాయి, క్రూరా సెరిబ్రై ఉంటాయి. సో ఈ క్రూరా సెరిబ్రై మొట్టమొదటి ఫస్ట్ రావాలి ఆప్షన్లో, మీరు చూస్ చేసుకునే ఆప్షన్లో ఫస్ట్ క్రూరా సెరిబ్రై రావాలి, వచ్చింది. నెక్స్ట్ ద బ్యాండ్ ఆఫ్ నర్వ్ ఫైబర్స్ దట్ కనెక్ట్ సెరిబ్రల్ హెమిస్పియర్స్. సెరిబ్రల్ హెమిస్పియర్స్ని కనెక్ట్ చేసే బ్యాండ్ ఆఫ్ నర్వ్ ఫైబర్స్ కార్పస్ కెల్లోజం. సో కార్పస్ కెల్లోజం తర్వాత రావాలి, క్రూరా సెరిబ్రై తర్వాత కార్పస్ కెల్లోజం రావాలి, ఫస్ట్ ఆప్షన్లో వచ్చింది అది. నెక్స్ట్ ద బ్యాండ్ ఆఫ్ నర్వ్ ఫైబర్స్ దట్ కనెక్ట్ టూ సెరిబెల్లార్ హెమిస్పియర్స్. సెరిబెల్లార్ హెమిస్పియర్స్ని కనెక్ట్ చేసే బ్యాండ్ ఆఫ్ నర్వ్ ఫైబర్స్ పాన్స్. సో కాబట్టి దాని తర్వాత కార్పస్ కెల్లోజం తర్వాత పాన్స్ రావాలి. సో ఇలా ఈ వరుస క్రమంలో వచ్చిన ఆప్షన్ ఫస్ట్ ఆప్షన్ అవుతుంది. సో మిగతా ఆప్షన్స్లో ఈ 3 రిపీట్ అయ్యాయి, కానీ ఇదే వరుసలో లేవు. ఎందుకంటే ఇక్కడ క్వశ్చన్లో రెస్పెక్టివ్లీ అన్నప్పుడు అదే వరుసని మనం అనుసరించాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంది. సో హియర్ ఇక్కడ పాన్స్ ఉంది, కార్పస్ కెల్లోజం ఉంది, క్రూరా సెరిబ్రై ఉంది. పాన్స్ అనేది ఫోర్ బ్రెయిన్ని హైండ్ బ్రెయిన్ని కలిపే నర్వ్ ఫైబర్స్ కావు. సో ఇది రాంగ్ అవుతుంది. నెక్స్ట్ థర్డ్ ఆప్షన్లో కార్పస్ కెల్లోజం, ఇది కూడా కాదు, ఇది క్రూరా సెరిబ్రై అవుతుంది, కార్పస్ కెల్లోజం కాదు. సో కాబట్టి ఇది కూడా రాంగ్ అవుతుంది. నెక్స్ట్ క్రూరా సెరిబ్రై, ఇక్కడ క్రూరా సెరిబ్రై ఫస్ట్ ఆప్షన్లో, ఫోర్త్ ఆప్షన్లో కూడా క్రూరా సెరిబ్రై ఉంది. సో నెక్స్ట్ సెరిబ్రల్ హెమిస్పియర్స్ తీసుకుంటే సెరిబ్రల్ హెమిస్పియర్స్ని కలిపేది కార్పస్ కెల్లోజం, పాన్స్ కాదు. కాబట్టి ఆ విధంగా ఫోర్త్ ఆప్షన్ కూడా రాంగ్ అవుతుంది. ఇలా మనం అనలైజ్ చేసుకుని సో ఇలాంటి క్వశ్చన్, కాంప్లికేటెడ్ క్వశ్చన్స్ని ఆన్సర్ చేయగలం అన్నమాట. సో ఇవి మోడల్ క్వశ్చన్స్ ఈ టాపిక్కి సంబంధించి. ఈరోజు మనం హ్యూమన్ న్యూరల్ సిస్టమ్ ఆర్ నర్వస్ సిస్టమ్ గురించి కొంత నేర్చుకున్నాం. అందులో ప్రధానంగా బ్రెయిన్కి సంబంధించిన ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ నేర్చుకున్నాం. బ్రెయిన్, దాంట్లో ఉండే పార్ట్స్. సో ఒకసారి మనం మళ్ళీ చూస్తే బ్రెయిన్లో 3 పార్ట్స్ ఉంటాయి: ఫోర్ బ్రెయిన్, మిడ్ బ్రెయిన్, హైండ్ బ్రెయిన్. ఫోర్ బ్రెయిన్లో మళ్ళీ 3 పార్ట్స్: ఆల్ఫాక్టరీ లోబ్స్, సెరిబ్రల్ హెమిస్పియర్స్, డయాన్సెఫలాన్. సో ఆల్ఫాక్టరీ లోబ్స్ ఏమో స్మెల్ కోసం, సెరిబ్రల్ హెమిస్పియర్స్ మెమొరీ, థింకింగ్, థాట్స్, ఈ ఫంక్షన్స్ కోసం. ఇక డయాన్సెఫలాన్ థెర్మోస్టాట్ అంటే టెంపరేచర్ రెగ్యులేషన్కి, వాటర్ రెగ్యులేషన్ కోసం, సాటిస్ఫాక్షను, హంగ్రీ, థర్స్ట్ ఇలాంటి యాక్చువల్లీ అవసరాల కోసం ఉంటుంది. టోటల్గా ఫోర్ బ్రెయిన్కి సంబంధించిన ఫంక్షన్స్ ఇవి. ఇక మిడ్ బ్రెయిన్లో 2 ఫంక్షన్స్ ఉన్నాయి. ఒకటి వినటం అంటే ఆడిటరీ, అండ్ విజువల్ అంటే దృశ్యం, చూడటం. ఈ 2 ఫంక్షన్స్ మిడ్ బ్రెయిన్ కంట్రోల్లో ఉంటాయి. ఇక హైండ్ బ్రెయిన్ విషయానికి తీసుకుంటే వాలంటరీ ఫంక్షన్స్, ఇన్వాలంటరీ ఫంక్షన్స్ 2 దీని కంట్రోల్లో ఉంటాయి. వాలంటరీ ఫంక్షన్స్ ఏమో సెరిబెల్లం కంట్రోల్లో ఉంటాయి, ఇన్వాలంటరీ ఫంక్షన్స్ ఏమో మెడుల్లా ఆబ్లాంగేటా కంట్రోల్లో ఉంటాయి. ఇది బ్రెయిన్కి సంబంధించి. ఇక స్పైనల్ కార్డ్కి సంబంధించి, స్పైనల్ కార్డ్ అనేది మెడుల్లా ఆబ్లాంగేటా నుంచి కంటిన్యూస్గా ఉంటుంది. ఇది వర్టిబ్రల్ కాలంలో ఉంటుంది. అది ఉండే కెనాల్ని న్యూరల్ కెనాల్ అంటాం. స్పైనల్ కార్డ్ లోపల ఉండే కెనాల్ని సెంట్రల్ కెనాల్ అంటాం. సో ఈ స్పైనల్ కార్డ్ మెడుల్లా ఆబ్లాంగేటా ఫొరామెన్ మ్యాగ్నమ్ నుంచి బయటకు వచ్చిన తర్వాత కంటిన్యూస్గా ఈ వర్టిబ్రల్ కాలంలో ఉండేటువంటి సెంట్రల్ నర్వస్ సిస్టమ్కి సంబంధించిన పార్ట్. ఇది ఈరోజు మనం ఈ లెసన్లో నేర్చుకున్నది.